when it was that you first talked to the defendant. Do you have an independent recollection of that?
I do not.
Okay. So let me ask you a quick question. I'm going to show you a document to see if it'll refresh your recollection. You see that phone number listed up at the top?
Yes, sir, that's my phone number.
Is it still currently your phone number?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I'm going to show you phone records starting at the 9th.
Okay.
If you can please scan down that column until the first time you see the number 909-374-0102.
Jesus.
Do you remember that to be Chase's number?
It's still programmed in my phone.
Okay.
Actually, I don't see it.
Okay, let me show you a second set of documents. Again, that's your phone number?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Why don't you start scanning down that column and
Okay.
let us know if it refreshes your recollection as the first time you heard from the defendant.
It's not there.
You can keep going, turn page.
Oh, okay.
Well, you run your own business, right?
Yes, sir. Oh, here we go. That was Wednesday the 10th at 4:15 p.m.
So now that you see that, does it refresh your recollection at what time you first heard from the defendant?
Yes, sir. 4:15 on Wednesday.
I know that we've gone 9 years, and you said fuzzy before.
Yes.
Sitting here today, is seeing that record consistent with what you remember?
I would think so. I would trust the phone.
Okay, in it, if I may ask, it says that call destination was where?
Pomona, California.
What's the next line say? That shows a what kind of call?
The next one says incoming.
Okay,
Like I was getting an incoming phone.
gotcha. Okay. So we've narrowed it down, I guess, to 4:15 on the 10th, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And that I put that on Exhibit 568. Does that look accurate?
Yes, sir.
Okay. In fact, during that time period, it was you that was calling the defendant, not the other way around, wasn't it?
It appears so. Yes, sir.
So let's go to the next thing that happens. Do you recall whether or not you had contact with the defendant on December 11th via phone call?
Oh, 2009.
2010, sorry.
December 11th?
February 11th, 2010.
Okay.
Sorry.
So the following day, so Thursday.
Yes.
I don't recall if I did or did not.
Do you remember having a phone call with him, though?
Possibly.
I'm sorry.
Objection vague is the time.
Overruled.
Possibly.
Possibly. At some point, did you have a conversation with the defendant about the defendant going to your brother's house?
Yes, sir.
What do you recall that, regardless of what exact day and time it was, what do you recall that conversation consisting of?
Saying something to the effect that my father, because I had a conversation with my father, he's concerned, and they want me to go down to the house. I'm willing to come right now. No, it's okay. I'm down here. reading the water for the dogs. They're outside, they're in the shed door's open, and there's a bag of food in there. So I didn't know if I needed to go down to take care of the dogs. You know, I don't have contact details for Summer's mom or anyone, so I mean, that was what I was thinking about.
Did the defendant indicate to you during that contact with him that he had been at your brother's house more than one occasion?
It's my understanding at that time that he was going down that week. I don't know. I thought it was Tuesday, during the week. So I felt like there were eyes on it and it was being handled. And we were close to Valentine's Day. So I felt like it was being handled. Otherwise, I would have went down there.
Okay, but let me ask you my question again, because I think you may have misunderstood it because I got it too complicated. During your conversations with the defendant, did the defendant tell you that the defendant had gone to your brother's house on more than one occasion in that time period?
That is correct.
Did he indicate specifically what days?
I believe those days were Tuesday and Thursday, or that midweek section.
Okay.
Earlier that week, basically. So I don't know when that was exactly.
At any time during that conversation or any of those conversations you had with the defendant in that, let's say, the 9th, 10th, 11th area of February, did he encourage you to go to the house?
No, he said that, he's got it. That's why I made the date of specifically Saturday. I'm going down regardless.
Okay, so you set a date of February or Saturday
Yes, sir.
to go down to your brother's house.
Regardless, yes, sir.
Was that in a conversation with the defendant or in your own mind?
I believe it was with him because I coordinated to meet him there.
Okay, him being the defendant.
Yes, sir.
Okay. At any time prior to the 13th, did the defendant encourage you or demand you call the police to report your brother missing?
No, sir.
Are you aware of whether the defendant had done so during that time period?
Objection, speculation.
Sustained.
Do you have any firsthand knowledge whether or not the defendant did?
I do not.
Okay. So then we get to February 13th, right?
Yes, sir. Saturday.
So tell us what happens.
It's a little fuzzy. It's been a long time. I just remember, and I don't even remember the vehicle I drove down. And I don't know if it was my work truck or my family minivan at the time. I just remember going there. I may or may not have walked up to the front door. I do remember walking around the left-hand side, reaching over to unlock the latch of the gate. Bear, that was my brother's and Summer's dog. Big, full-size Akita, sweet dog. Greets me, diggers air. Hey boys, how you doing? Walk down the left-hand side. Doors are locked, and
Objection. It's a narrative, Your Honor.
Sustained. You can ask the next question.
Let me, you've already looked at Exhibit 20. Let me put that back up on the screen for you.
yes, sir.
Mr. Jackson is on the lights already, so I don't go there. I think Mr. Jackson provided a laser pointer. There you go. It's that little button right there. If you can point out the left side or the side of the house gate that you went through. On the big screen so we can all see it.
Sorry. Back there.
Okay. So as depicted in Exhibit 20, it is to the left side of the truck.
Yes,
Okay. When you went there on the 13th, was the green truck in the driveway?
Yes, sir.
Did you see the trooper?
I did not.
When you first get to the house on the 13th, was the defendant already there?
I believe so, but I'm not 100% sure.
If he wasn't there when you got there, did he arrive at some point after that?
I don't recall.
Well, was the defendant there on the 13th with you?
Yes, he was there with me. Yes, sir.
Okay, so my question is, do you have an independent recollection sitting here today whether he showed up before you or after you?
I do not.
Sorry, I'm looking for an exhibit real quick. I'll have Ms. Rodriguez do it while I ask you some questions. So you check around the front door, the side door, you see the dog.
Yes, sir.
What else do you remember happening?
I say hello to the dogs. I walk down the left-hand side. I may or may not have. Honestly, I don't remember exactly. I may have followed him there. Chase may have been in front of me.
Objection, speculation.
Overruled.
So you may finish your answer if you need to.
Okay. Chase may have been in front of me. I don't. But it's been a long time. I'm not sure if he pointed out the window was unlocked and I could.
Objection, speculation.
Overruled.
I'm not sure if he pointed out, if he was walking first and he pointed out that the window was, it appeared closed, but it wasn't locked. So I took the screen off the door, or the window, and I could slide it open. And the blinds were down at window level, and that's how I crawled into the house.
Okay. Would it refresh your recollection to look at your police report of your statement to Detective DeGaulle on the 15th
Yes, sir.
as to kind of that series of events getting to that back window?
That would help. Yes, sir.
I'm going to direct your attention to these last 2.5 paragraphs. If you can review that to yourself, with yourself.
Okay.
So now, let's kind of go through this step by step. At some point, you're with the defendant at your brother's house on the 13th.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Do both of you enter the backyard?
I believe so.
Okay. Do you have an independent recollection of who went first in the backyard?
I believe he went first because when I was going in the window, he was standing further down on my left by the sliding glass door to the back family room area.
Did that catch you as odd?
It did. Like I said, the blinds were fully down. I'm 5'8" on a good day. For me to get into there, my brother, anyway, for me to get in there, it was very difficult for me to crawl through, hold myself up, and hold the blinds open to go belly first, into the sliding over the window seal. And I thought, it's kind of strange that he wouldn't be standing there holding, he's helping me hold the blind open, or another, he stood off to the left.
Like how far away from the window?
I would say approximately 18 to 20 feet.
Show you what's been marked as exhibit number 123. Do you recognize what's depicted in that photograph?
Yes, sir.
And how do you recognize it?
That's the window that's the back of the house. That's the window I went through.
And can you use that laser pointer for us again?
Okay.
And show us on the big screen the window you're referring to, because I see three.
Okay, yeah. So there's the window that I went through. See the sink? That's the kitchen window.
For the record, let me take it step by step for the court reporter's record. The first window you pointed at,
Yes, sir.
is that it?
This one right here.
The one you went through?
That's Joey's office.
In that exhibit is the window on the bottom left, or right, correct? Bottom right.
So I walked down the left-hand side. I made this right-hand turn. Screen is off. I took it off. I slid the window open. I had to push that. See the wooden cantilevers or whatever they call it, window. I pushed that, and then I had to clear this space, which is tough for me to do and hold everything open. And I was wondering why he wasn't helping or offered.
Okay. Then you said the window on the bottom left, between the barbecue and it looks like a shelving planting unit thing, is the window to the kitchen?
That's the kitchen sink. Yes. Yeah, the coffee pot right there. Yeah, yes, sir.
Okay. So that's,
You wanted to mark that on the photograph, maybe with an all one pay for office and kitchen.
we can do that for the court?
If you have a mark, you have a mark on the photograph.
So with this marker, can you put an O above the window on that exhibit for the office window? And can you put a K above the kitchen window? And I noticed you just wrote it in parentheses, is that correct?
That's how you put them on blueprints.
That's how you put them on blueprints. Okay. That's fine. That is fine. So actually, why I have you with this with you, you indicated the defendant was 18 to 20 feet away from you. Can you put an X on there on the approximate location the defendant was standing while you were struggling to get in the window?
Put an X. Okay.
Approximately where he would have been standing.
Okay. It's not fully in the picture. The picture cuts off, but I'll put it like at the end.
Okay, so let me do this. Mr. Jackson, can we have the camera? So what's being displayed now is the alterations you did to exhibit number 123. And those are your markings in black on the photograph, right?
Yes, sir.
So this is your O in parentheses and your K in parentheses, and the X with a circle around it with the word Chase.
Correct. Approximately where you stand.
Now, you say approximately because it's the angle of this photograph.
Correct. And it's if it was a wider lens, you could see it'd be closer to the sliding glass door, so the angle's a little off.
Okay. In Exhibit 123, can you see the edge right here of the sliding glass door on the left-hand side of the picture?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And is that a standard 8-foot or a 10-foot slider?
I believe there's around 6 or so. I don't know the exact amount.
So a majority of that slider is going to be off of the picture to the left.
Correct.
Is the handle to open the slider depicted in this photo, or is it to the left off the photo?
It's to the left off of the photo.
So in relation to the handle to open the door and the right-hand side of the door, where would you put the defendant in that photograph?
By the side or closer to the handle.
I'm showing you exhibit number 125 for identification. You recognize that photograph as well,
Yes, sir.
and how you recognize it?
It's a close-up picture of the window that I crawled through.
Mr. Jackson, can we go back to Attorney Display? Thank you. How tall are you?
5'8",
Short legs?
vertically challenged.
Okay. So then I'm going to show you exhibit number 60 for identification. Do you recognize that photograph?
That's the inside of his office on the other side of the window, from the inside.
And when you came through the window on the 13th, you would have come into this room that's being depicted on exhibit 60.
Yes, sir.
The blinds at the time when you came through the window were up or down?
They were down.
As they look in the photograph number 60 is
Correct, at the bottom of the window sill.
You mentioned in your testimony something about the window being unlocked. Do you recall that?
Yes, sir.
What do you recall of that?
It was pointed out to me that it was unlocked.
By whom?
Mr. Merritt?
Showing you exhibit number 126. Do you recognize what's depicted in that photograph?
Yes, sir.
And what is it?
That's the window seal?
The office of your brother's house?
Yeah, to his office, yes, sir.
Can you see the locking mechanism for the window in that photograph?
I think so, yes.
Is it easier to see on the screen, the computer screen, or the big screen?
I think it's easier to see on this big screen.
Can you point it out for us, please? Are you familiar with that kind of locking system?
Not really. I mean,
Well, is it a lever that flips up and down, comes out side to side?
I believe it goes up and down. Some go up and down. They all are different. I don't know that specific one. But
Okay. To help the court out, I'm going to give you that marker again. Can you circle the locking mechanism on the exhibit for the court so they know where it's at? You can make a big circle if it helps. Okay, you put that arrow into the circle right on the lock, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. We can go to the camera here, Mr. Jackson, please. By the way, the 13th was the first time you'd ever met the defendant, to your recollection?
Yes, sir. I believe that's the first time I've ever met him in person.
And at the time on the 13th, did you have an opportunity to see any vehicles that he was driving?
Yes, sir.
What kind of vehicle was it?
It appeared to be an old SBC truck, white truck with box utility bed, or harbor bed, whatever you want to call
You said an SBC?
it. It looked like a former Southern Bell truck. You know, they were white on the chassis and utility bed on the back with lights on top. You know, like telephone company
Gotcha.
type truck.
Gotcha. Let me show you exhibit number 401. You recognize the vehicle that's depicted in that photograph.
Yes, sir.
How do you recognize it?
That appears to be his, or the vehicle at the time.
Can we go back to protect, Mr. Jack? And I'm going to show you number 402 and 403 kind of simultaneously. You recognize what's depicted in those two photographs.
Yeah, the box portion, the brake lights, the ladder racks.
Is that number 402 now being displayed? Sorry. You're not familiar with the number is. Is that number 402 now being displayed on the projector?
That's the same
Okay.
picture.
And that would be the driver's side rear, right?
Yes, sir.
And then number 403 was the passenger side rear, right?
Correct.
Was there anything else about the defendant's behavior when you went into the window to the office that stuck out to you?
Not really, not at that time.
Did he go into the house with you?
I don't believe so.
Did he give you a reason why he didn't want to go in the house?
No, sir. I don't believe so.
What do you see when you go into the house?
The front door or from the window?
From the window. Describe it for us.
Okay. The back of his chair was immediately after the blinds, so I believe I was pushing the blinds into something. And then as you walk through there, as you go through the header of his door, small little hallway, continuing straight is the garage. On the right is the downstairs bathroom. To the left, you go to the kitchen and the family room. On your way into the family room, you have your stairs going vertical. You have your egress, your front door. You have your formal dining room on that other side wall, which is where you saw the lumber, the hardwood floor.
Did you notice anything significant when you walked in and walked through the house?
It looks just lived in and kind of a mess. And I knew they were remodeling, but there was drawers out and stuff, displaced.
Did you see any painting supplies?
I did.
What kind?
Well, I saw blue tape on certain spots on the floor against the island and the linoleum floor. Different spots. I think the door jamb. And then I think, I don't remember, there was a paint can or somewhere around the island there was a paint can or something like that.
Do you recall telling detectives that you saw a paint tray?
I did see a tray as well, yes.
Where was that?
I don't recall. Around the island somewhere.
Did it appear to have been freshly painted to you?
The island?
Anything in that house when you looked around?
I kind of thought that the island was painted because it matched the paint that was still in the little tray. But
Did you notice any food out?
It's been so long, I get my times of being in the house confused. I knew I saw popcorn bowls
Where?
in the family room on the futon. Somewhere over by the oven, I saw eggs out in a carton. When I saw the popcorn bowls out, I just thought it was strange because there was no cover on the chairs.
On the chairs, or?
Yeah, you can see the pillow cushion. You can see the cushion and no covering on
You mentioned the popcorn bowls were by the
it.
futon.
On the futon.
Okay. Was it the futon that didn't have cover, or the chairs?
The backs where you would lean back on the pillow. So
On the futon or on a
Right.
chair?
on where the boys would lean back. I didn't see that on that.
On that, would that be the futon you're meaning?
The futon makes like an L,
Okay.
okay? It looks like a miniature sofa type thing. And the bowls were just sitting right on where you would sit. And then you have, I guess, a total of 4 pillows, 1, 2, 3, 4. The bottom 2 be 1 and 2, top 3 and 4. Number 3 and 4 didn't have no covering.
Okay.
And I thought that was strange at the time, but I was looking for contact details.
On your first, when you go through the house, where do you actually go? Do you go through the entire house?
I don't remember if I actually went upstairs that time.
Did you go in the garage?
I can't recall.
What happened next? What do you recall doing next?
I was looking for phone numbers for something, so I was opening cupboard doors in the kitchen, thinking there might be, contact, grandma, whatever. I believe I either opened the slider to say, hey, come in, or whatever, I don't remember if I went to the front door or not.
Okay. You said come into the defendant?
Yeah, like, I don't be rude, when I went over to the slider and I'd open it as I was looking around, I don't want him just standing outside, be rude.
Did he come in?
No, he did not. That's when he said, no, I'm good, or whatever.
Did he say anything else besides no, I'm good?
No, sir, I don't think so.
In your initial walk into the house and looking for phone numbers and your brother, did you see any phones? House phone, cell phone?
I can't recall.
What else happens on the 13th? Anything?
I remember, I read my notes, or whatever that paper is. I do remember going neighbor to neighbor, asking if they'd seen anything. My brother were, at this point, were a little concerned. I knocked on, my kids and I actually, we knocked on neighbors' doors to see if anyone had seen my family.
Did you get any positive feedback? Leads? Information?
No, sir.
Not a soul?
No one saw him.
Okay.
One of
Objection, no questions.
actually, I shouldn't state it. I can't. My days are confused.
Okay.
Well, at some point, did you get some information from a neighbor?
Yes, sir.
Okay, whether it was on the 13th or the 15th or whatever, was it significant to you in your efforts to find your brother?
Yes, sir.
And what was that information?
The neighbor had said, I can't remember which, it might have been the one to the left, in the cul-de-sac, that they had saw a work truck or something that had been parked there.
Did they give you I'm sorry, go ahead.
They kind of described it like a work truck.
Okay. Did they give you a time frame of when they saw this truck?
They couldn't remember.
Okay. But could they even tell you that they'd even talked to your brother or met your brother or the family?
A few of them had commented that they'd met the family when they moved in, they were sweet and all that, but that's about it.
Okay. Did that information the neighbor give you cause you to do anything in particular in looking for your brother?
At that point, I was starting to get concerned, but because the next day was Valentine's, that Sunday would be the 14th. But I had talked with friends and, you know, my dad and everyone else, my mom. I just said, drop dead date, 9 a.m. on Monday morning. I'm going to the police office regardless.
Okay. Let me fill in our calendar real quick before we move on. So the 13th, you were at the house.
Yes, sir.
With the defendant, correct?
That's correct.
Did I write that up there accurately? On 5,
Yes.
5, 6, 8? Okay.
Yes.
Well, were you concerned enough to want to call the police and report your brother's family missing?
Not at that time, but there was definitely, you know, alarms. Because my dad was definitely concerned. He was pretty, so, but because of the way those 2 weeks fell in February, there was some holiday the week before, I don't remember, something, and I had thought that maybe they went to Big Bear or Hawaii or, you know, a little stint. So, but because it had been some time since I'd spoke with him, etc., that's why I committed to the Monday, the 15th.
Were you also, or did you have a lay opinion or understanding of a time frame in which you could report someone missing?
I did not.
Were you ever under the impression that you couldn't report someone missing for 15 days?
No, sir. It was explained to me later from San Diego Sheriff's Department that
That's irrelevant.
Okay. So you set a drop dead date of Monday the 15th at 9 a.m. that you needed to do something if you hadn't heard from your brother, right?
correct. It was agreed upon between the family members.
Okay. Did you hear from your brother?
I did not, no, sir.
So what'd you do?
I called, I was in Huntington Beach on that house I was doing, and I called the sheriff's department, and they said to come immediately, so I packed up my tools, drove home, swapped vehicles, picked up my wife and kids at the time, and I drove straight there to the sheriff's office down there.
Let me back up to the 14th for a moment. Do you recall getting a phone call from someone about your brother's house?
Yes, sir.
Who was that?
Animal control.
Why'd they call you?
They had said that the neighbors had heard barking, and that they had left. They'd been out multiple times and left little, where they did a sticker, on the door. And I had said I was just down there yesterday. My family is concerned that there may be an issue. And and that we've all agreed that if we don't hear from them by tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock, I will be going down to the sheriff's office to file a, whatever it's called.
How did they know to get a hold of you?
I left my contact information on Stickett's Hay. I filled out a, I don't remember if it was, I think it was Post-its or something. I left them on the door. Hi, I'm Michael McStay. I'm the brother of Joseph, of the family. We are all concerned. This is my phone number. Please contact me. So that's how she got me.
Gotcha. And up to this point, were you aware of, from the 1st through now, the 15th, were you aware of any other person's efforts to have a welfare check done at the house looking for your brother during that time period?
I had heard that Mr. Kavanaugh had made one, but I'm not sure.
Okay. Did that go into your state of mind, though, about how you were processing all this information?
Yes, sir.
So the 15th comes. What happens?
I called. I believe I called down there from Huntington Beach to the sheriff's department and kind of gave them a brief overview of what was going on, and they said to come in immediately.
What'd you do?
Packed up my tools, threw them in the truck, and headed down there. Stopped along the way to switch vehicles, pick up my wife and my kids, and go to the sheriff's department.
Is that when you met with Deputy Tingley?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Was that at the Fallbrook Sheriff Station office?
Yes, sir.
Did you tell him, express your concerns to him at that point? What had happened up to that point?
Yes, sir.
Okay, what happened next?
It was all a blur at this point. It started a chain reaction, but at some point he ran a check on the car, or somebody ran a check on the car, and said they had found it had been towed on the 8th as being abandoned from somewhere down by the border.
Did that concern you?
Yes, sir.
Why?
Summer would never take the boys to Mexico. She had commented about this. And my brother and I had surfed there years ago, and this is not as safe as it used to be. So
that was a very strange fact for you.
Correct. Correct.
When was the last time you were down that way?
1 or 2 years after their disappearance, I went and did a job in Tijuana for a skateboard company, but that's the last time I've been
How
there.
about before February of 2010?
Yes, sir.
When was the last time before February 2010?
High school days, or maybe before I moved to Kauai in '95.
In the information you provided to Deputy Tingley, did you provide him some information that the defendant had given to you during your contact with him?
Can you rephrase that?
That was a bad lawyer question.
Yeah,
Sorry.
Sorry. I didn't understand that one.
Did you tell Deputy Tingley that the defendant had said certain things to you about your brother's PayPal account and email account?
I'm not sure.
Would it refresh your recollection to look at the report from Deputy Tingley about your conversation?
Yes, sir.
You're going to review the first 2 paragraphs on that page to yourself, please.
We get a big.
2127 is the Bates number.
So what's not been redacted?
Yes.
Okay.
you had time to review that?
Yes, sir.
Do you now recall what you told Deputy Tingley the defendant had told you?
I don't remember, I don't remember, it's been a long time, but I would, I guess so.
Isn't it true that you told Deputy Tingley that the defendant told you that his PayPal and email accounts had not been accessed since the 4th?
I guess so. I don't remember saying it, but I would trust those statements more than those records.
Isn't it true you also told Deputy Tingley in that interview that my brother's best friend and chief engineer for the company hacked into Joseph's email and PayPal account?
There's actually no foundation. It doesn't appear that it reflects his memory.
It's impeachment at this point, Your Honor.
Well, we really can't if he said that.
Did you say that?
I must have if it's in the documents, sir.
And you identified that best friend and chief engineer as Charles Merritt, or Chase Merritt, correct?
Yes, sir.
And that's what you understood the defendant's position to be with your brother's company, right? A friend and an engineer.
At that time, yes, sir. I knew he built all the fountains, the custom ones.
So that day on February 15th, you were interviewed by Deputy Tingley, right?
Yes, sir. Mike Tingley.
And then you were interviewed at length by Detectives DeGaulle and Fisk, right?
Yes, sir.
What was your goal in talking to them and telling them all the information you had?
On my family, give them as much information as I could.
During those conversations, the conversation with Detective DeGaulle and Fisk, were you asked to even speculate as to what possibly happened to them or where they had gone?
Could you repeat that, please?
During your interview with Detective DeGaulle and Fisk, were you even asked to speculate or give an opinion or guess where they could have gone or what could have happened to them?
Oh, yes, sir. Yeah.
Did you do that over the whole period of time that they were missing?
I just, like I said before, I thought that they might have went to Big Bear or something like that. So that's what I told the detectives.
Yeah.
Why I didn't also call them sooner.
Well, in the 3.5 years they were missing, you held out hope that they were somewhere, right?
Yes, sir. I set up a website. I did whatever I could.
And sometimes that holding out hope was speculating that they were in Big Bear or gone to Hawaii or other places, right?
Yes, sir.
Did you ever get any evidence or be made aware of any evidence that they in fact were in Big Bear, Hawaii, Mexico, anywhere?
No, sir.
Were you shown a video of a family crossing the border by Detective DeGaulle at some point?
I was.
Did you think that was them?
Absolutely not. I even said so to the detective. I laughed and I said, "Is this the best you have?"
I take it you were a little disappointed.
Yeah.
As part of your efforts to help locate your brother's family, did you seek the help and assistance from people and organizations, out in California and outside California?
Yes, sir.
What is Texas EquiSearch?
Texas EquiSearch is Tim Miller's company. He, my father actually initiated all of that. He contacted them and he set all that up for them to come out. My good friend Don McCutcheon provided a vehicle. They came out with some drones. They were out, and then at the same time the Chelsea King case was going on. So the times kind of got split over that, and nothing ever came of it.
And you cooperated with them to try and find Joe and Summer and the kids.
We went down to the house. They brought their own, people with them. they didn't disclose. One of them was a reporter who Steph Watts was in the house, and it didn't do anything but make a mess.
You regret that?
Absolutely.
'Cause it didn't help find Joe, did it?
No, sir.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about the business after the 15th. What was your interaction with Earth Inspired Products after your brothers reported missing on the 15th?
So after my brother was, we were getting phone calls from customers. My mom was getting phone calls. A real weird number turned out to be Saudi Arabia. So it was a missing persons case. So I wanted to try to keep his company, at least fulfill the last few orders or something. So I went down and I set up a fictitious business at DBA. Can't call it Earth Inspired Products, but I called it earthinspiredproducts.com. Or there was a space com, I can't remember. And I opened a bank account for that business, because obviously I can't draft from what was my brother's and his entity and all of that, because, you know, that's frozen and whatever. But
I'm sorry, let me stop you. How did you know those accounts were frozen?
something happened with PayPal that triggered a closing of it, so therefore the payment on the house never went through. The house, I guess, was on automatic withdrawal, and because of PayPal, it got frozen or something. And
Did his other bank accounts get frozen as well, to your knowledge?
I don't know.
Oh, okay. So then, what other involvement did you have past that with the company? So you got a DBA, you opened an account to
Right.
try and finish those last projects. What else did you do?
That was about it. I had my own business to run, and I mean, I don't know.
Okay. After the 15th, what kind of contact did you have with Dan Kavanaugh in dealing with Earth Inspired Products?
I believe I had some at that time. I can't remember the specifics, but a little bit here and there.
Like, what do you remember?
I can't remember if I had him a signer on the account or not. But on Joey's other side, somebody had to handle the orders that people were doing on the retail side. There were drop ships. So, and that's about it. It's all a blur at this point.
And to your knowledge, Dan was running the website, retail side, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Or I don't know if it's a retail, I don't know if it's a whole thing or the retail side. I really don't know how it all works.
Okay. What about the defendant? What contact did you have with the defendant after the 15th?
I don't remember if there was any. I don't recall.
You don't remember if there was any?
Nothing jumps out. I don't recall.
Okay. When you say I don't recall, does that mean it's possible you're just sitting here today don't remember?
I would say it's possible, but I just don't recall. I don't remember. I know that he had to go finish the Saudi Arabia job. I believe there was a balance on that job. I want to say it was 16,000 or something. I don't really remember all the details, but I do remember going to Metro Sheet Metal. I think that Dave is the owner and his son's Mike or something, and they showed us 3 different sets that were going to be created up. I believe that the piece for Saudi Arabia was a 3-piece thing. That's about it.
You didn't, it sounds like you, and correct me if I'm wrong, did you have much involvement with the business other than what you've described here today?
No, sir, I did not.
Did you have access to the PayPal account, your brother's bank accounts?
I believe Dan set up a new PayPal. Anything that was previous that was my brother's, I didn't touch. I set a whole new entity up just to conclude whatever and keep it going. But that was about the details that I have, the involvement that I have.
Okay. So let me close a few gaps here as we wind up. On the 15th, when you were at the house, did you take any property from the house?
Yes, sir.
What'd you take?
I did. I took the SD card from the camera.
From what camera?
From the I believe it must have been Summer's camera. It was in the food pantry next to the kitchen. Because I'd asked the detectives, it said that they had to go get warrants and things. And I said, well, what are you guys going to be working on first? And they said, oh, we got to get financials and something. So I said, am I going to get in trouble if I take anything from the house? They said, no, it's not a, no, you won't. So I took his computer and the SD card from the camera, and I contacted my friend Todd Phillips, who made a website. I uploaded pictures. That was the McStayFamily.org site that I owned for years, that I've since closed once I went off of social media. And then when they issued the warrants, they called me, and I went down there with my friend, and I put everything back before the police went back in.
Did you do anything with the computer itself?
I couldn't get into it because I didn't have the correct power cord for it. Oh, and they may have taken a external hard drive as well, a Maxon hard drive. But
Did you do anything with it?
no, sir.
Did you have? I'm sorry, what?
All I could use was the pictures, which I have to this day.
So on that SD card out of that camera, what was it? Just a whole bunch of family pictures?
Correct. Everything that's now you see in the public eye came from that camera that I extracted and posted on the McStay site, and all the media grabbed that and put it up on the internet.
And so that was an attempt to help me find my brother.
That is correct.
Okay.
So we made a whole page of pictures so they could see current pictures, the birthmark on Joey Jr., etc.
Okay. I'm showing you what's been marked as exhibit number 87. Do you recognize what's depicted in that photograph?
Yes, sir.
How do you recognize it?
The camera on the bottom left is the one I took the memory card from.
So I see a camera that has a yellow placard number 6 next to it, and one that has a placard 5 on it. Which one?
Number 5, sir.
Number 5, the one in the lower left corner next to, is that pasta?
No, my brother was a health freak, cashews.
Okay, cashews. And so you then returned the computer on the 15th when Detective Duvall and them were there, correct?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And just to verify, you were not able to get into that computer.
Neither the computer nor the external hard drive.
I'll show you what's been marked as exhibit number 47 for identification. You recognize what's depicted in that photograph?
Yes, sir.
What do you recognize?
That's got an encounter of the kitchen, and it's actually showing the side of the family room, which you can't see it on the left of where the picture ends, is the back of the house where the slider is at.
You see the items on the countertop of the island?
I do.
And I don't know which is better for you to look at in this lighting, whether it's the computer monitor or the big screen. With your eyesight and the lighting, let us do what you need to do to see it. Do you know what those items are?
One item appears to be Summer's glasses. There's in the top, in the yellow or wood-looking color. That's a toothbrush. I believe the the black thing on the right to below the toothbrush is a flashlight, maybe? Couple of kid spoons or to-go spoons. And I don't know what the orange thing is.
Are any of those items yours?
No, sir.
Do you remember seeing them there when you were in the house on either the 13th or the 15th?
Yes, sir.
You do.
Yes, sir.
When do you recall seeing them?
I'm not sure if, because when I went in, the drawers were on top of the counter, so I'm not sure when this picture was taken.
So when you say you went in and the drawers were on top of the counter, would that be on the 13th or the 15th?
Above.
Oh.
This. Yes, sir.
At some point, you mentioned that because of the frozen accounts, the mortgage was not paid.
Yes, sir.
What happened?
Well, everything, as the missing persons case drug on, we knew that it was going to go into foreclosure, so I went down and I pulled all of the appliances out that they put in that were new, and I sold them and I gave the money to my nephew for child support because Joey was missing and I didn't want him to go without. That would be Jonah.
What else did you do?
I just took a few things that I believe we took Jonah there to get a few things. He wanted a surfboard and his music.
Joe had surfboards? Where were they?
I don't know, about 5'10", 19 3/4, 2.5 inch thick. We grew up surfing. We grew up in Texas, but he learned how to, he got hooked on surfing back then. And so in California, we surfed a lot. I surfed in Kauai.
I'm sorry, maybe you mumbled. Where were they?
Oh.
Where were they?
I'm sorry. They were in the garage.
Was there something else that you noticed significant in the garage that Summer never went anywhere without with the kids?
The double stroller.
Where was that?
That was in the garage.
Is there anything else in the garage that stuck out to you?
Not really. It was just so cluttered.
What happened to, we heard from your mom yesterday that a lot of their property was still in pods.
That's correct.
The moving boxes, the moving
The moving company, pods, the company.
What happened to those?
We couldn't recover them. We tried to recover them, but pods ended up, I think, selling them out, auctioning them off, or whatever they do.
Because the storage bill wasn't paid?
No, my mom paid over like $3,000 or something for it, and they said because we didn't even have a power of attorney or something, they held on to them and sold it anyway.
Okay. This disposal of the property and getting stuff out of the house, what time frame did that actually occur?
I don't really remember. May or June, it was, or later, I don't even remember.
Okay. So at least several months after your brother
Oh,
was determined to be really missing.
yes, sir.
What was the next 3.5 years like?
3 years and 9 months. We try to hold out hope. That's all you can do.
What was your reaction when you learned that some remains had been found out by Victorville that were possibly your family?
Started weeping.
What did you do when you learned that?
I called my mother and made sure she wasn't around people that were, she said she was at work. I made sure that she was, in a safe place before I told her. I think I actually had to call her back because of that. And I basically just repeated what the detectives told me.
Let me type a couple of loose ends that I think we need to make sure. With the business,
Yes, sir.
did you ever receive any money from the defendant for any completed projects that were owed to EIP in keeping the business alive?
No, sir.
Did you ever provide funds personally to the defendant for completion of any of those projects or in business-related stuff with EIP?
I was a signer on that account. I'm sure money went out of the account that I set up. I'm sure funds were dispersed from that account.
I'm sorry.
Speculate.
Do you independently recall personally writing a check or transferring money out of that account to the defendant?
I don't recall.
Back to when you and the defendant were at the house on the 13th, do you recall telling detectives that the defendant gave you a reason why he did not want to go in the house?
I'm not sure.
You remember being interviewed by Detective Bachman after San Diego County took over the investigation and mentioning that to him?
I don't remember.
Showing you what's been, or a page from that report, Bates number 324, the very last paragraph there, if you want to read that last paragraph to yourself. Should I take it from that audible, oh, you remember something?
Yes, sir.
What is it?
He had a record.
Is it? The defendant told you he didn't want to go in that house because he had a prior record.
Leading.
He had had some trouble with the law, and he didn't want to go in. I don't remember the exact wording, but
That's what the defendant told you?
If I said that, I remember it way better back then.
Okay. The defendant told you something along those lines of why you didn't want to go in the house.
Yes, sir.
You then relayed that to Detective Bachman in 2014.
Yes, sir.
Okay. What funds were used to open that other EIP.com bank account?
I believe it was just some orders from the retail side.
Who'd you get the money from? Where'd you get the money? How?
I believe Dan set up a new PayPal account so he could, and it has to go to a bank, so I believe it was from the retail side.
Okay, but you seem like you're not positive.
That's correct, I'm not 100%.
Okay. Were you handling that aspect of it?
I just set up the business entity so they could continue.
You didn't handle the money transfers?
No, sir.
You didn't look at any of those records?
No, sir.
Have you looked at anyone's bank records in this?
No, sir.
Why not?
I had my own business, my own 3 kids, one of them with type 1. I had a lot going on. So,
Including looking for your...
including trying to find my family, I was juggling a lot.
Do you ever attempt to go out to north of Victorville to see the grave sites?
I've been out there, yes, sir.
When you first went out there, were you able to find it?
No, I got lost too, yeah.
Had you ever been out there before?
No, sir.
You ever go to Vegas?
No, but I was doing a job in Eagles at the time, and I went by at that point.
Have you ever been in that area around the dump, or
No, sir.
are you like most travelers on the 15? You don't stop in Victorville, you wait till you get to Barstow?
Right.
Are you? I mean, are you one of those?
Yes, sir. I'm usually, if I'm on the road, I'm going.
Okay. So, last but not least, I want to show you a photograph, exhibit number 10. I want to know two things. I want to know if you recognize what is in the photograph, and if you can place a time frame of when that photograph may have been taken. Okay?
What's in it and the time?
Yes. Okay? Do you recognize who's in that photograph?
I recognize, yes.
Who is it?
Photo. It's my brother and Bear. Bear's the big Akita.
Does that appear to be in the Fallbrook house?
Yes, sir.
And is Joe wearing some black pants with white stripes?
Yeah, like Adidas or something like this. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Have you finished your direct?
Yes, I have no further questions, actually.
All right, we'll go ahead and take our afternoon recess at this time, about 15 minutes. Keep in mind the admonitions previously given to you, not to form or express any opinions about the case, not to discuss the case, and we'll see everyone back in about 15 minutes. Council and parties are still present. Yes, Mr. McGee?
Yes, Your Honor. Two things. First, the people seem to intent on ignoring the court's order. He presented Exhibit 10, which was purposely excluded by the court, and now he wants to say that it's been received as an exhibit, has been identified. He had limited pictures he can actually present showing the McStay family. He seems to be ignoring that. With that order, the defense is making a request that the court find him a misconduct and admonish the people and the jury to disregard that exhibit and strike it from the record. Second, in his direct questioning with the witness, without getting proper clearance or prior clearance from the court, he now brought up his criminal history to the detriment of my client. It's flagrant disregard for any due process rights of my client. I would ask that the court admonish the people, and if they wish to proceed in any other type of presentation, that they actually seek permission of the court. And I think at this point, the people are attempting to, I guess, violate the due process rights of my client by presenting character evidence to attack his credibility, since the evidence they presented is not coming out as they had hoped.
Well,
Your Honor, I'm sorry, I need to be heard.
sure.
First of all, as to the defendant's excuse for not going to the house, that's an admission. There was no motion to exclude by the defense, where they've had several years to make that in limine motion to exclude it. And most importantly, Mr. Moline mentioned it in his opening statement, that he had a felony warrant. So that cat was already out of the bag by Mr. Moline. Second of all, if Mr. McGee is intent on lodging a formal accusation of prosecutorial misconduct, I'm entitled to a hearing, because a false allegation of misconduct and a maliciously false allegation of misconduct is subject to discipline by the state bar. As the court knows, I did not show exhibit number 10 to the jury, and nor have I asked for it to be admitted as an exhibit to the jury. We're not even to that stage yet. So Mr. McGee's malicious accusation of misconduct is unfounded, both factually and legally, and I'd ask the court to make such a finding.
All right, well, with regard to Exhibit 10, the court previously we had reviewed photographs, and it indicated that there were sufficient other photographs showing various items in the residence, some of which included individuals from the family. Exhibit 10, the court found to be cumulative and not particularly relevant, so the court did indicate that it would exclude it. So it should not have been referenced. As pointed out, however, it was not displayed on the screen to the jurors. Of course, defense counsel could have objected or asked to approach at the moment that was being referenced and didn't. I don't think it's misconduct. I shouldn't have been referred to, but I don't think it's misconduct. With regard to the statement elicited that the defendant offered a reason for not going into the house, being something to the effect of he had a prior record or had some issue with the law, and that's why he didn't want to go into the house. That was something that obviously defense counsel is aware of. It was something that we discussed in some of the in limine motions. It is correct that there was never a motion to exclude it. The prosecution asked Mr. McStay, or Mr. McStay, when he testified, indicated he opened the door, the sliding, after he had gone into the house through the window, he opened the sliding door, invited or asked the defendant to enter. He indicated the defendant would not enter, indicated he would not go inside. Something to the effect of, I'm good. There were a couple of questions about, did he offer any explanation? The witness said no. Towards the end of the examination, the prosecution was clearly showing him a report where he indicated that the defendant gave the reason. Again, counsel could have objected or asked to approach. The fact that counsel did not indicated to the court that counsel had made a tactical decision to permit that question to explain the defendant's conduct in not going inside, rather than have it just the evidence that the defendant refused to come inside and leave the jury to speculate as to why he might not have gone inside. And as pointed out, Mr. Moline did refer to that in his opening statement. So it's not something that, since Mr. Moline referred to it in his opening statement, I assume that that's something Mr. Moline believed was going to be evidence in the case. So I see nothing improper at all about referring to that. Had there been an objection and had counsel indicated that as a tactical decision, they would rather not have the jury hear that explanation and rather just leave it with the defendant didn't want to come inside, I probably would have sustained that. But counsel had an opportunity to do that in limine motions, and counsel had an opportunity to do that when it was obvious that the prosecution was about to elicit that. So I see nothing improper in that.
So I need to respond to that. First of all, I didn't mention it in my opening, so I'm not sure where the court's getting that from, and I'm not sure why counsel says it and the court accepts it, because I didn't mention it. Maybe Mr. McGee mentioned it, but I didn't mention it. Okay. Second thing is the statement that Mr. McStay testified to, that Mr. Merritt says this, and counsel knows this before he asked the question, was not an admission that the statement was made at the time, as if Mr. Merritt is sitting in the back there saying, I'm not going to go in because I have a record. That's not what happened. The question is, in retrospect, Mr. McStay is saying he had a record. That's why I'm speculating that he didn't go in. It's not a statement that he made, and counsel knows that. Okay? But he asked the question anyway because of the way the report is read. And we can't be put in a position where we have to object, to be hiding things. That is a tactical decision we make at the time not to object it because the prosecutor is asking it, because it looks to the jury as if we're hiding something if we're going to do that. And we don't want to look that way. So counsel knew what he was doing. He knew the report is written in a way that would elicit the answer that he wanted, knowing that that wasn't a statement that Mr. Merritt made at the time. That is a statement in retrospect. Yeah, I think now, looking back, he didn't want to go in because he had a criminal history. It's not that Mr. Merritt said that to him.
That's not what Mr. McStay's testimony was.
Because it's the way it was asked. He was asked to refresh his recollection and look at the report, the way the report is written. But counsel fully knows exactly what the context is. And he still asked it.
And just to point out, Mr. McStay didn't testify to anything. He says, I don't remember whatever's in the report, and I objected as deleting because he's just reading in what the information he wanted before the jury. And Mr. McStay says, whatever it says in the report, I don't remember. So it wasn't actually his testimony. It was the testimony of the people that the jury heard.
Well, certainly counsel is entitled to refresh a witness's recollection with a report if the witness indicates that they still don't remember it, but they know whatever they told the officers at the time was correct. There's nothing wrong with asking the witness, so you told the officers at the time whatever it says in the report, and then have the officer come in and testify to what the witness told the officer at the time his past recollection recorded. So there's nothing improper about that. All of your comments about what the prosecution was doing, it was clear that that's what he was referring to in the report. You had ample opportunities before the trial started to bring an in limine motion to exclude them. You had ample opportunity to object to it or to ask to approach before counsel went into that. It was obvious to me that's what they were, that's what Mr. Hines was attempting to elicit and have the witness refresh his recollection with. And there was no objection, no decision to, no request to approach on it. As far as I'm concerned, that was a tactical decision by defense counsel to allow that rather than not have any explanation given.